Call to order the Parks Advisory Board meeting, January 8th, 2018.
Davis.
Here.
Dirth.
Here.
Ogaleski.
Here.
Herman.
Here.
Kaufman.
Here.
Miller. Rule.
Here.
Schuessler.
Here.
Bowler.
Approval of the November 6th joint meeting minutes.
I have a correction under approval of the minutes from the previous meeting.
For the joint meeting.
No, for the Parks meeting.
Okay, we're
It
on,
says approve first page.
we're on the joint meeting
Oh,
first.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm like,
I'm good with those.
I'm like, there
I'll
was-
motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approval of the November 13 minutes.
All right,
Okay, that one I
there we go.
No.
You have approval of minutes from the previous meeting, and you have the date November 13th. Shouldn't that be October 9th?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I am human. I will not pretend to be perfect. I will make mistakes. Catch them.
And I have,
We have one. Okay, where are we at?
oh, sorry, on the second page near the bottom,
Okay.
I am listed as Mr. Rule.
Well, that would be wrong. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Any others?
Motion to accept. Anyone?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes with corrections.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Do you know any,
You might want to read it.
all right. Any citizen statements, items not listed on the agenda? All right, we're on to new business. Teichmiller batting cage.
Thanks, Amy. This is a project that we've actually been working on with the Oshkosh North Youth Baseball Group, as well as the neighborhood association surrounding Teichmiller Park. We've met a couple of times with the baseball group, and they are looking to donate a batting cage at Teichmiller Park. If you take a look at the screen, it shows an approximate location for where we're looking to have the batting cage located. And in your packet, we also included a rendering of something similar to what the youth baseball group is proposing. It's very grainy, so apologize for that. It's a copy of multiple copies. But we wanted to give you an idea what it looked like. They are looking to donate the netting, the support post, the cabling, and the concrete. And we are going to be trying to accommodate doing the concrete work in-house, as well as some of the restoration costs. So we're going to work closely with them on helping to keep down the amount of their donation. But we have two members here from the North Baseball Group, and everything included, we're looking at about a $7,000 project, about just over $4,000 for the site prep and restoration, and then about another $3,000 or $3,500 of the materials that they will be donating. Again, we have worked with the Neighborhood Association out there, and as part of a grant that the Neighborhood Association applied for some funding through the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative. The baseball field out at Teichmiller will be renovated this year as well. So what we're trying to do is combine the two projects and really make a nice improvement to the park. So what we're looking at tonight is to have the board approve the donation, and what we'll be doing then is working closely with the group and getting that renovation completed out there as well. If you have any questions for us, or if you have anything for the
Are
group,
they gonna, who are the two from?
Chris, do you want to come on up? Would you like to come up to the microphone?
Hi, I'm Chris Bendixson from Oshkosh North Baseball.
Address?
2751 Lila May.
If you want to just maybe talk about the need for a batting cage and how you guys are looking to help it out.
Sure. I think we all know there's a shortage in the city for baseball fields, decent fields to accommodate all the groups. Based on discussions last fall with the user fees going in, to help establish a fund to have funds available to make the parks better, more facilities, et cetera, we kind of springboarded this project with that and saying, hey, can we donate this batting cage as this park's being developed to have a little bit nicer site with more amenities for our members to use. So
Okay, and you're donating how much,
as far as cost,
yeah,
essentially, other than the labor, we're covering all the materials.
so you said the cost was 7?
It's close to $7,000, correct?
And what's out of the Parks Department, what end of that is?
At this point, they're covering the concrete and the restoration, all the materials, and our staff would be doing the concrete work. So it's in-house labor,
So
basically.
it's just in-house labor, so it's basically nothing to our budget.
That's correct. What we'd be doing, as we talked with Chris and his group, we're going to have traffic coming in and out of there to do the ball diamond renovation as well. So we're hoping to coordinate the two so that we would pick up renovation or some of the cost of renovation through the ball diamond project as well. So as far as anything else in our budget, there shouldn't be an impact.
Ray, just a question down the line, I guess. Who actually will own the batting cages? Will be the city of Oshkosh or the Oshkosh North Baseball?
Yes, they are donating it at this point, so it would be owned by us.
Okay, and the city attorney went over the donation policy and everything's being followed per the policy?
Yes, that's why it's coming to your board, correct?
Okay. So ultimately, at the end of this season, our staff will be taking down the batting nets and things, not leaving it up for weather and all those types of things?
Yeah, we would be happy to be responsible for the end of season. We tie the nets up, but they won't completely come down. We just
Right.
tie them up and then we'll do a prep in the spring to make sure they're ready to go. We also have AstroTurf that the athletic director from Oshkosh North acquired when they took the turf out of Titan. That'll be laid down on top of the concrete. So, but that'll stay there year round.
Okay. Great donation, and I support it, as long as all the Ts are crossed and Is are dotted.
I'll second.
Is that a motion you made, or just a?
I'll make a motion to accept the donation.
I'll second.
Davis,
Yes.
Dirk,
Yes.
Ogleski,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Kaufman,
Yes.
Miller, Rule,
Yes.
Schuessler,
Yes.
Buller. Motion passed. 7-4, 0 against.
Thank
We
you
got
very
Mr.
much.
Miller.
Thank you.
Oh, did you come in? I'm sorry.
He snuck in like a little church mouse.
A big church.
I didn't say that. You read my mind again.
All right. We talk about the tobacco-free parks ordinance.
We had some internal staff discussions about the proposed no smoking in the parks ordinance. And at the conclusion of that, we had an alternative solution or an idea come up that I then talked with the representatives from the Youth Coalition from Rethink. They are here to have some input as well. But talking about this internally with our department staff as well as the police department and city attorney, we're looking, instead of instituting an ordinance, making it a park rule. According to the municipal code, the parks director can institute park rules. For example, the new ice rink that we put down behind the convention center, we came up with some rules of use for that facility. We have rules of use for people that rent our shelters, rules of use for people that come to our pool. And what we are proposing, instead of an ordinance, is that our department would institute a no smoking rule. We would work with the Youth Coalition to have signs made up and posted, and they're willing to help with helping with funding that cost. And in our discussions this morning, we said, let's try this, give it a 1-year trial period, kind of like we did with the dogs on leash, see if there's any improvements. As far as dealing with anybody who doesn't comply, or if we get some complaints, if the board remembers, we do have a park suspension policy, which allows myself or our designees through the police department to suspend people from parks. And that is something that we would look to utilize if we had people complaining or habitual people offending the smoking rule. We would be able to suspend them. I would see it as a very short period of time if it came to that, a couple of days possibly, just based on some of the other park suspensions we've had dealing with, some of the more stiffer disorderly conduct and other issues that come through. So that's what we're proposing. And I wanted to throw it out for ideas and suggestions. Again, we have the members here from the Rethink and the Youth Coalition, as well as Chief Smith from the Police Department. But we felt it was a less heavy-handed way to try to go about it, and we can do this according to the current city ordinances with park regulations.
Can I ask how the police department feels about going this route?
For the purposes of law enforcement, it would be a more preferred route to go with a park rule than actually going with an ordinance. And as Parks Director Maurer indicated, it is a softer approach to deal with this. It's a quality of life issue, we understand that, but we certainly have higher priorities than answering ordinance violations for smoking in the parks. So this would be a more tenable way for us to help out the Parks Department, help the city with hopefully enforcing this rule.
So then this wouldn't put any more burden on you?
No.
As a rule? and
No.
not an ordinance?
No.
Okay, great, thank you.
So Ray, just to be clear, this would be a parks policy.
Yes, parks
It-
policy, parks rule,
Okay.
basically, yes.
And rangers can enforce this, and any park employee can enforce this then?
We would have that discussion. According to the ordinance, it would be a designee by myself. So we'd have to work through that. I don't want to give all of our staff an opportunity to bring a park suspension forward. So it's something we'd gauge based on the number of complaints or the number of issues that would come forward. But that's possible, yes.
I'm not looking to wheel people out of the parks. I'm just looking for some simple compliance. Hey, it's the city of Oshkosh's parks policy, no smoking in the park. Could you please put your cigarette out? I mean, that's what we're looking for, I think, aren't we?
Is
And
there
that's-
anybody here from the coalition at once?
Yep, come on up.
My name is Lindsay Erickson with the Rethink Youth Coalition, one of the advisors and the tobacco prevention coordinator with the Winnebago County Health Department. Address is 240 Algoma Boulevard, apartment 310. I think for the Youth Coalition, I think as long as there is tobacco-free parks, as long as it's comprehensive, covers all parks, all parts of the park, and includes all tobacco products, and has this time limit that we can kind of reassess within a year or 6 months to make sure that it's effective and doing what we're hoping it's doing. I think in the end we would be supportive, however that looks, if it's a rule or an ordinance.
So Lindsay, you can support this as this being parks policy, having the Parks Department enforce it, and then take a look at it a year from now? Is
Right.
that-
Yep.
Ray, can you support that?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that as we were drafting the ordinance, part of the issue that we were finding was including tobacco, chewing tobacco and so forth, is hard to, there's not a definition for that really in the state statute, which our city attorney was looking at. It's more of the non-smoking. Same with the e-cigs, that we are finding would be too hard for us to enforce or to battle in court. So what I would say is we're gonna focus on the cigarette smoking, cigar smoking, the smoking aspect at this point, just because there's some gray areas for those points that you brought up.
Yeah, I think, so for the Youth Coalition in the presentation we gave in November, we did provide that model policy, so that does kind of list out pretty clearly what tobacco products that would look like. Electronic devices we know are increasing in usage. So we would recommend including all tobacco products just to make sure that it's comprehensive and no confusion about what's covered. Is smoking, using an electronic device, is that considered smoking? Is it just a conventional type of cigarette? So best practice is to include all tobacco products, but.
Ray, is the electronic cigarette in that tobacco, the smoking?
Again, according to the city attorney, that one is in a gray area for us, and at this point, some of the, I believe she said there's some school districts that tried to institute some policies or some ordinance rules, basically, and those may be challenged, if I recall correctly. So that's why I would suggest we stick with the smoking of tobacco products at this point. I could definitely meet with the city attorney again before I would, or the police department would handle any of those complaints. But she did specifically mention those two based on the definition in the state statutes.
If I can just add to, school districts in this area do include electronic devices. So I think making it consistent with school property, park property is best practice, but most school districts do include electronic devices.
Ray, can you work with Lindsay and get the bulk of their policy and our policy as long as it's okay with the, as long as it's okay with the city attorney? I mean, I think we as a nation kind of micromanage these dumb laws. So, I mean, I've got no problem saying tobacco, but I mean, I don't know why we can't enforce that, or at least strive to.
Yeah, we can work with her, but I do need to rely on our
I
legal
get it.
advice, so
I get
we'll
it.
go with what she has to say, but I appreciate what you're explaining as well, too.
Are you girls comfortable with this then?
Yep, I think
Okay.
as long as it covers
All right.
tobacco products, all park areas,
Okay.
in the end, it's getting at what we're hoping for.
Okay.
Well, and to your point, Bill, I think the key thing, and the girls brought it forward when they gave their presentations, it was finding the cigarette butts on the ground. Young kids, taking them, chewing on them, whatever it could be. Animals were getting to them and having some health issues. So I think if we start with a kind of a park rule and work our way through that, and start to do the education piece, I think that's the best way to go for this year at least. And then move it forward if there's a need to take it to the next level.
I agree, so.
Yeah, we can make it noted in the minutes. We'll bring it back next January and have a review with your group and see what we see.
And I also think we could do a media, kind of a media blitz thing and incorporate the other communities that are already doing, have these ordinances or park rules so that it doesn't look like Oshkosh is doing something that no one else is doing.
Right.
Because I think that also adds to their, kind of to their purpose of what they're trying to do as an organization.
I don't think anybody's gonna stand up and holler at us for making our parks non-smoking. So I think this is a no-brainer, and thanks to the girls, I think we can move this thing forward, so.
Ray, what is the plan for posting this? Are we posting this?
Yes, we'll be working with their group to, I believe there's some standard signs out there that you guys have looked at already. So they are looking to apply for some grant funding to help purchase those signs. We'll have to sit down because, as I explained, we have 41 parks and open spaces. Some of those areas won't need to have the signs posted, but if you look at Menominee Park, we may have to post 12 or 18 signs throughout that park. So we'll have to sit down with their group and identify locations and how many signs that will be needed as well. And again, we're looking for the compliance, and the education part of it is where we're going to start. So I think the signage would be important to do.
There's no other question. I'll make a motion to,
I would say institute, actually you don't have to because I have the authority, but I'd like your backing on it to direct the parks director to institute a no smoking tobacco products in the city parks.
whatever that motion was, yes.
I'll second that.
Before we take a vote, it didn't come up, but we need to touch a little bit on special events because I know there are some special events that have contacted us and we're not in support of this. We will be working with them to ask that they make their events non-smoking. But if I hear from a special event that they would like me to consider to waive that park rule, I will be working with them and possibly waiving that park rule. So I
Let's charge them $500 and give it to the girls.
I want to be upfront with that because we have a number of groups that have voiced that concern to us.
Talk to the district attorney and see if we could do something like that and then pass that
I was
back to the girls.
kidding.
No, if we could do it, then pass it on to them,
Right.
but that's between you and the attorney.
I just want to make sure I made you aware of that.
Okay.
So,
Davis.
Aye.
Dirk.
Aye.
Ogaleski.
Aye.
Herman.
Aye.
Kaufman.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Rule.
Aye.
Schussler.
Aye.
Motion passed 8-0.
All right, next up, discussion of Lakeshore, the remaining acreage.
Okay, this is really our first step in starting to let you know how we would like to start getting some civic and community engagement on the remaining. It's roughly 70 acres from what I'm looking at and figuring. And I provided you some maps, which actually show you the certified survey map that has been going through the process of the city approval, as well as this document, which shows you the Oshkosh CORP parcel. And then if you take a look, you'll see outlot number 1 on the bottom. That's actually going to be where Westfield will be extending through from the south. So that will be the roadway coming into the Oshkosh CORP property, and then they'll have their own driveways going off of that extension. So after that outlot and the Oshkosh CORP parcel are taken out, it's just under 70 acres, 69.9 acres. So what we wanted to do is look at ways, because we know this is a very sensitive subject to the entire community. We saw that for the last 6 months. What we have been doing, not only with the Parks Department, with our CORP, but the city, one of our strategic plan goals for the city is to gather more community input, citizen engagement. And however we can do that, we're looking to find ways to do so. A couple months ago, we had a presentation about a software firm out of Madison that's called Polko. I do have representatives here, and they're going to give you a brief presentation and let you know about their product. This is something that the city's been considering for a couple of years. The city manager and assistant city manager had seen it at a couple of different conferences. And after we saw it at a department head meeting, we saw throughout the city departments a variety of ways we could possibly use this survey tool. So I'm going to let them start out by explaining Polko, and then we'll get more into how it's going to be used for the golf course or the remaining acreage out there. So come on up.
Yeah, if you hit present, it should go up to full screen. Yeah, I can use that too. Thank you. Sensitive. Yeah, as Ray said, thanks so much for having me up. My name is Nick Mastronardi, and I'm here with Polko, and happy to share a little bit about what Polko is and this software platform that's been running my life for the last couple of years. The whole goal, I'm a former public servant, over 10 years, a little bit of time in technology with Amazon, and wanted to work kind of at the intersection of the two, helping improve communications, and that's how we got into this civic communication role that we're in. And so our goal with Polko, me and my team who's here with me, this is what we're trying to prevent. We wanted to build a platform to bring people together, have high quality conversations. And there's always the vocal few, we know how they feel, and then, or sometimes maybe people don't show up at all, but these are important things that influence people's lives. Or maybe we're doing outreach through social media, and then some people show up and it's just lots of channels and it's tough to bring them all together. Or if we do an online tool, or somebody like that guy in the bottom right, who might respond 100 times and then we can't trust the results. So we wanted to see if we could solve all these problems together. And so we built Polko, and the process for using it to do civic communication is really a 3-step process: post, share, analyze. So the first step is whatever questions you want to present to the community and the background information, you can load them up. It's like a Survey Monkey, but each question also has a background page, so you can help inform. We want not just more informed participation, not more participation, but also more informed. So you post a question and some background materials, and then we make it really easy to share that broadly. You can put it out through social media, you can embed it on the website, you can email it, but the reason that you can now put this out lots of different ways and be confident that nobody's stuffing the ballot box or responding more than once is that regardless of where members of the community find it and respond, it all comes back into Polko, where we can cross-reference against different verification lists, such as the local voter registration file or other fields like that. We let everybody respond, and then we show a set of several results. Here's here's the sentiment, how the community feels among all respondents, and then we also provide sets of results. Here's the sentiment about from everybody who was a registered member of the community, or breakdowns by age or by gender, so you can know who's responding and know who's not. We never share anybody's individual level detail, but we just try to make it an easy way for folks who maybe can't be here, who might be watching, who might encounter it through online, especially young. I have 2 young kids, and I know I can't always make it to city council meetings. It's folks who might think that things are important, an easy way for them to get involved. So it's really that 3-step process, and by doing those things together, we hope to engender more participation, more informed. We can see if we're missing parts of the community real time by who's not participating, and then you can reach out to them. The data, since it's getting cross-referenced, you can use it to help progress things. And ultimately now the community knows they're being asked, their input's being heard. And it's also the goal is to also save staff time because there's less compilation effort on that. So this is just a quick chart relative to some other tools. You know, the top line is, sure, yeah, SurveyMonkey can be easy and fast, but it's not always citable. Or if you wanted something citable, you can go through Gallup, or one of these analog tools, but those are expensive and difficult to do frequently. Anytime you ask a question, these are your community, and they'll get notified of future input. So it's your followership's always growing. People can respond through their mobile phones. They get informed through the background materials that you load up. And we do a couple things with the commentary, so we structure it so people can't mudsling or call other people names, but they are able to lodge input that way. So it's truly designed for civic communications from the beginning. And our goal is at the end of the day to be beneficial to both groups. We want the government officials be able to put questions out and collect input in a way that's not more noise for them. And we also want it to be beneficial for the community, an easier way for them to learn what's going on and to have a voice. And so in a nutshell, that's Polko, and happy to answer whatever questions you may have, but I just wanted to give a quick overview of how it looks and works and our goals behind it.
This is just one avenue that we're looking to use for some public input for the remaining 70 acres. Just to give you an idea, we met again today to talk with Polko and their staff on just a general time frame, just to let you know. Our department really needs to know by March or early in March if there's going to be golfing at the golf course in the future. We know that with all the construction that'll be taking place, there will not be golfing in 2018. However, as we've heard throughout the process, people are wondering if there's a possibility for 9 holes or some other alternatives out there. And in order for me to know if I need to start maintaining any of these holes for a future golf course, I need to know that and start doing that even if we may not have golf, because if the greens or the fairways or some of these golf course areas go to weed or other turf, it's harder and more expensive to bring back to a golf course. So even though we may not have golfing this year, we may in the future, and this will give us, again, I think a good avenue to get citizen input. And just to give you the timeline that we kind of talked about, we're hoping that we can have this question and a few other general questions going out, because again, this isn't just for the golf course. It's something the city is going to be using department and city-wide to get input for the council and for the departments. But we're looking to have the first set of questions and spotlighting on the golf course being ready on January 19th, having the survey go until about February 9th, so roughly 3.5 weeks. And then by the Parks Board meeting on February 12th, we would have that information from Polko as far as what the citizens are saying about the remaining 70 acres. Should there be a golf course? Should there not? And give you an idea on some of the input we'll have. So we'd be able to share that at the Parks Board meeting on February 12th. And at the same time, what I would suggest to the board is we'd want to have February 12th as just a general public input meeting for the citizens. So we'd be able to let people know they can still come here and have their input to the Parks Board for what should happen on those remaining acres.
Ray, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
How are we marketing this to the community? How are we going to get maximum participation in the survey itself? And maybe that's Nick question more than a Ray question.
It's both of us, because if you want to go, and then I can jump in on some of the ideas that we threw around.
Yep.
But go ahead.
Yeah, Brian, who's here over there in the checkered shirt, he's our, it's kind of like a Polko playbook for all the communities that we've launched with. Here's different ways to reach out, maybe a local chamber of commerce, employers groups downtown, different parts of the community to just get as much buy-in, as representative buy-in as possible. So we have a little playbook, and Brian can, help the community execute it, and then Ray had, some additional ideas as well.
Yeah, just to give you a couple things that we wrote down that we have specific to the city, working with the school district, possibly getting information out to all the families through the school district, all the youth groups and adult groups that we work with, all our neighborhood associations, senior center newsletter, all the social media sites from police department, fire department, all the parks, Oshkosh media, rec department, information and brochures. We talked about mailing information and utility bills. Working with our boards and commissions, making sure that we start here saying, we want you to sign up for Polko because obviously you have an interest in the community, and you'll get these, when there's a new question that comes out from the city, once you get into the database, you get an email with the question. So an example we thought of during some of our recent meetings was the issue that faced the council during budget was the idea of possibly narrowing Oregon Street. That might have been a good question to throw out to businesses in that area and all the community to get input. So some of those different types of things. We talked about local media, Oshkosh papers, media outlets, university students, advertising and getting information out to the university. And I think these guys were quite surprised at the number of ways that we came up with today in addition to the ideas that they have.
So Nick, is this enough time to do this right? I mean, it seems like we're compressing dates, and I know we've been compressing dates from the get-go on this, but I mean,
Yeah.
you're okay with the timelines?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it definitely seems compressed to traditional methods of civic input, but we've designed this platform to be, ready. So the biggest step is make sure we have good questions, and then make sure that we have good channels to get it out. And I think our brainstorm today, it sounded like these were great channels, and there was real will behind it. But from our side, everything works, and we're ready to support, and we have our team ready to support the community as well.
That being said, in a short compressed timeline, have you found less questions, like maybe take 7 or 8 and stop right there so you don't get too broad because you got a compressed timeline?
Yeah, there's a sweet spot. You don't want to go just too few of questions.
Right.
If everybody comes and there's only one question there, that's probably not optimal.
Right.
If you have 3 dozen questions, maybe that's good, but then you might dilute input on the questions that matter most. So our suggestion is a couple, and then maybe ask a couple more in time as well. Let people know this is a great place for continued dialogue.
Is there a point, spot in your place for like a comment at the end of the survey, or some citizen has?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can respond and say, I'm in favor of this, or I select this option if it's a multiple choice. And then after they respond, they can also post a comment as well. So, yep. Yeah.
So, first of all, you have to market this to all these different groups, and they have to see your marketing,
Yep.
correct? And then the next step is if they see your marketing and they want to participate, then they have to go someplace and sign up with an account.
Yeah, that's so we do a couple things. Is we're not greedy. We don't require everybody to participate by coming to Polko. You could embed this in a local news page, a local blog, or on the city's page itself. So they could encounter it in multiple places. But the first time that they respond to any questions, we do ask for name and zip. And then that name and zip is what creates an account, or it goes over, lets us verify them. Again, if they're not verified or not on the voter file, they can still respond, and they'll still show up in the all respondents list.
Okay, thanks.
Ray, a question I guess I'm thinking out loud a little bit. It's not really about Polko, but there's been some noise already about what may happen out there. What about the plans that are already kind of like in place? How are we gonna let the citizens know that there's gonna be a river walk that goes down in front of the golf course? How are we gonna let them know that the bike pet plan has changed and it's going on the other end of the golf course? Because all those things are gonna take up golf course space already. And we really don't, I know they've changed and modified where Oshkosh CORP is gonna go, So realistically, how can we develop a plan? We don't even know, there's so many moving parts yet.
Well, I don't think the only moving parts are what's going to happen on the remaining. I think it's the general consensus is we're going to have the Riverwalk along the waterfront. We're applying for grant funding to see if we can bring the trail along the
Right.
south portion. That we won't know about at this point.
What about the trailhead for the tribal trail? There was some discussion that there was gonna be a parking lot there, and possibly restrooms even. Is that being part of this plan?
Down by Two Brothers.
Yeah.
I'd have to check with, I don't think as part of the bike and ped, I think because if we are now getting people down to Rainbow Park, we felt that a trailhead possibly at Rainbow Park is a better idea, because we'll have those connections then to the tribal
'Cause
heritage.
I know just from brief discussions with the county, they're anticipating that already. So. that's
But
what I mean.
location
There's-
to be determined.
Yeah, but they're saying there's some agreement or something with the owners of Two Brothers that they're, because of all the trouble they're having with people accessing their facility, that there was gonna be a parking lot and bathrooms and things closer to the start of the trail.
Again, and I appreciate the questions, but the question for me, operationally, I need to know golf course or no golf course. And then we can start talking, Steve, about the amenities that'll be on the acreage based on if there is gonna be a golf course, and we'll have to start looking at if we're able to configure holes on the golf course, and we'll be doing that. There's a group, obviously, that through the process that had expressed that interest. I'll be meeting with them and sitting down with them. But you're right, if you take a look at the northern portion along Oshkosh CORP property and the waterfront, that's roughly maybe 100 feet wide. And once you put in a trail in there, there's probably not going to be golf holes in that area, but there's still the area to the west and that small area to the east as well, so.
Right, okay.
So for me, that's the rush getting into March. And then, like I said, once that question's answered, we'll start having all those discussion on the amenities that would take place at that point.
Ray, is there a way to know the extension of Keller Road over to Oshkosh Court?
Is there a way to know?
Where is that gonna run?
It is that yellow piece right
Bullet
here.
one.
Oh,
Right,
the
but
one coming back?
That's not Keller. Keller's over here off Rath Lane.
If you go back to the west, Bill,
Right,
and you see that little square that kind of goes up, and then there's a building right there. That's that little gray building. Rath Lane is going to tie into Keller.
right.
And where that roundabout is, they're going to take the road and come right to that roundabout.
But on
Go
the
straight.
park property, where is that gonna go, or is that not gonna go on park property?
That's not going to go on park property.
Actually, yes, it will.
It will?
It'll be closer to the property boundaries on the south. So it'll come from the cul-de-sac and then come into the Westfield area as well.
Into lot one?
Yes, outlot one, yes.
Okay, so it's gonna stay close to the south end
Yes.
and not take up maybe
Correct.
100 feet, 200, 150?
No, what we're trying to do is keep it down to the back of these properties because there's development coming in.
Right.
And what we're looking at is having business access from the backside of the properties then instead of off of the busy Oshkosh Ave and 21.
Okay.
Is what the thinking is.
All right. So I was hoping.
Yes.
So if we, I guess you want approval tonight to go forward?
No,
or-
I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of this avenue that we're working on.
Okay.
Because it is new. And just to give you an update again, we can have more discussion on the process, but that's kind of what I'm looking at, to start getting that citizen input. And we're gonna do our best to get the word out on the POCO. And I threw out a number that we want to achieve based on some of the numbers we're seeing when we do our CORP surveys, that I'd like to see that doubled or tripled, at least to give us another opportunity for that input.
So how, is you and staff going to decide the questions, working with POCO?
We'll be
or do you
working with
want
them, and-
some board members to shoot you a question or two in the next day or two?
No, actually, we talked about that, and what we're gonna do is, we're gonna come right out of the gun. We're gonna give the background on the whole process, on how we got to today. So we're gonna chronologically get us, the citizens, to that point. And then and we talked about this, and they understand, we don't wanna have any leading question. The question's pretty much gonna be black and white. On the remaining 70 acres, would you like to see a golf course or 70-acre park, or however we phrase that? We need to know that. It's pretty straightforward. We're not going to lead it anyway. And then as we talked about getting more questions, we thought about some general questions. Throw me a couple that we talked about. What is your perception of, I don't remember, you have a
Yeah, do you
whole
remember
list.
the-
Do you have just a couple general ones to throw out there from your list? Can you just come on up too as well, please?
I think it was just something like general satisfaction with.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we talked about was we just don't want to have the golf course question on there, because if people don't have if they don't have a concern about the golf course or the parks, we still want to get them to register for POLCO and get them interested in the city surveys. So if we ask them a general question on,
Yeah, for example, one would be, how satisfied are you with Oshkosh city government in general?
That's not a good one.
these are just examples.
Yeah, we have an entire list of about.
Hey, Herman, if we get your
25
name off there, we'll be just fine.
Yeah, we have a list of about 25 to 30 questions that we've seen work in a whole bunch of other communities. Another question might be, how satisfied are you with roads and transportation in the area? What is one thing that you really like about living in Oshkosh? Questions like these.
Okay.
So there'd be general questions, but to get people interested in getting signed up for the database, instead of just having it single focused on the acreage.
So do you also do some of the, like, generic male, female,
In the
race, those types of questions too?
in
As
the
far as in the overall 15, 20 questions, let's just say, do you have some of that where you want to know how many are male respondents versus female respondents, that type of data information?
Yeah, so when they provide their name and zip.
That pretty
then
much
we-
gives it to you, yeah.
Then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have a specific question. Like, a lot of Survey Monkey stuff is male. Are you male, female, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah, something like 15 to 20% of most surveys are asking demographics up
Right.
front.
Yeah.
In this case, we don't have to ask all those questions every time.
Okay, just the way your base is set up
Yep.
then. Okay, good.
Just to build on Steve's question, can you explain how we can use that then as marketing? Because you'll have that real-time information coming in, so we'll know if we have homeowners, male, over 65 are our primary responders. We may want to target 30 to 40-year-old females, and by looking at that real-time information, we can then work with POLCO to say, all right, we need to target this different audience. How can we do that? So they can help us on maybe a different social media website or some other way to target that audience.
Just a really quick example. So in Middleton, they were doing a annual satisfaction survey. And this happens in a lot of communities where everybody's worried about getting older folks. Older participation is actually really good, 40 through 70. The hardest demographic to engage with is the 30-year-olds, the 20s and the 30s. And so Middleton experienced this real time, and they were able to adjust how they were doing outreach to focus more on those groups by going through sports leagues or through the school district. But yeah, we're monitoring that real time.
Right, real good, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, it sounds like, I think it's a great tool for the city as a whole, not just the Parks Board, but I think it's a great way to go.
If there's no other questions for POLCO, I'll just open it up for general questions on anything related to the remaining 70 acres at the golf course property. If you have anything, I'm willing to help whatever I can.
But on the north side, Pinoco Street, does it look like it's gonna be ending right there at the Oshkosh Corp property? And not extending all the way down?
It's all to be determined at this point. We have not, this is the existing site, and we haven't ruled anything out at this point.
I just saw that you had a green line down, stopping at that.
This just came today from our GIS. I don't know what the green, just other than being park property. So this is not, don't take this as anything dealing with any development going on at any park site at this point.
Okay, all right.
So, we may just have the Riverwalk going along Pinoco, and the road would go away, and we have a cul-de-sac at the end, by the maintenance shed right now. Those are all things that we'll talk about once we get into the park master plan.
Okay, that's gonna come to us.
Yes, oh yes.
Okay.
This isn't a question, more maybe just like a statement. I'm very surprised that we're considering golf here, because it seemed like that was one of the big selling points of this, was that it was going to be usable park space for the community. So I'm more stating my surprise that is something that they're considering. So
Well, I would think that golf is recreation to a lot of people in the city, and that's been taken away. Now, if the city can provide some, if it's even just 6 holes for recreation, that'd be no different than pickleball courts, volleyball courts, basketball courts, stuff like that. I know there's a lot of parents that would like to take their kids out just to play a few holes. So I think it's a good avenue for recreation, and I think that's the way you gotta look at it, because I don't think there's gonna be too much of a charge on it. If you go to a 6-hole course, don't open your eyes so big.
It's all to be determined.
You
I
gotta
haven't looked that
maintain
far.
it. You gotta maintain it anyway.
Right.
I mean, there's green space.
Yeah, and like I said, we have not taken anything off the table at this point. But Tony, to your comment, I think that's, again, why we're looking to get community input, and that's one avenue that this board will be hopefully making a recommendation to the council in the next month and a half or 2 months or so.
Ray, do we know as far as area, the 70 acres, as far as wetlands of actual usable space or the delineation that they had done?
We're working on that map. It's a moving target yet because of the stormwater management we have to help with on the Oshkosh CORP site. So I'm hoping that we'll have that information and I can share that as soon as we do. I can let you know that, I'm gonna get away from the mic, but in this area, for some of the stormwater management, this is gonna become more of a, for lack of a better word, wetland, shoreland planting, filtration plants, basically. So we're gonna be directing water flow into the larger south pond, and then it'll go through, essentially filtering from the plants. It'll get deposited, the water into the next 2 ponds, and then by doing that, it cleans the water before it gets to the lake, and then it's released back out to the lake. So there will definitely be some changes in that area as far as stormwater management. I think, don't hold me to this, I wanna say it's between 3 and 4 acres of these plantings that we'll be putting out there. The other option was basically expanding those ponds, which we felt if it's gonna be parkland or golf course, whatever it is, that these plantings might be more of a suitable way to handle the stormwater issue. And then just some of our initial thinking, working with stormwater management staff, is some of these ponds out here, probably the ones closer to Rath Lane, we're taking out of the stormwater management flow for possible use for recreation during the winter. So there wouldn't be the risk of having water run off with salt and having the ice be unstable. If it's a good winter season like this is, we'd be able to clear some of those ponds for winter recreation activities then. But those are all things we'll keep bringing back here, but at least initial planning, that's what we're looking at.
And Ray, one of the things that I brought up during the deliberation was, anticipation of what the rest of the 70 acres could look like. We're really, about a 2, 3, maybe even 4 years away from realistically, because it's gonna take all of 18 and 19 for CORP to build. There's gonna be a lot of dirt movement. We don't know how much the roads are gonna really take up. And I just don't want citizens to think that within a year or 2, we're gonna have this, whatever it might be. Plus, we need a funding arm too, because most of the money for the sale of the golf course is being tied up already. So I think, like we're gonna talk later on tonight about where we're at with our CIP, I think some of this stuff will end up being CIP driven for the parks.
You're
It isn't
correct.
gonna happen overnight.
You're right. I can foresee, obviously, this year there's no golf.
Right.
19 most likely, because as the timeline that we're being shared is in October of 2019 is when they hope to open
Right.
their facility. So you're right, 2 to 3 years most
Yeah,
likely.
I just think until they get done and everything is kind of done, the infrastructure around it, and even maybe how some of Oshkosh Ave impacts, and that road behind there and things that I just don't want citizens to get too amped up that we're gonna have all this ready to go within the next couple of years. It's gonna take a lot longer than that.
Steve, you said the money's already tied up from the sale?
Some of it, yeah.
Some. How much is some?
Well,
3.2?
no, some of it, I can tell you, some of it's gonna pay the debt off to the golf course.
Right,
which
that's
is $800,000, correct?
Well, and I don't want to say this is premature because it has to go to the council. And
Right.
there's been initial discussions about paying off a
Yep.
portion of the debt. But again, it's council policy and decision, so I don't want to put Steve on the spot either and speak for
Oh, come on,
Councilmember
that's fine.
Herman.
Let's go.
But it has
Well, we
to
don't
be
have
come from the council.
concrete numbers either. Council doesn't have
Right.
concrete numbers yet.
Right.
We know that the discussion is, some of it's gonna go to stormwater, some other things related to the district, tax increment financing.
But it's gonna
district.
stay in, hopefully stay within the structure of this
Yes.
property.
Yes, that's the hope. It's maybe not part of this discussion, but I'll bring it up because my wife actually asked me, what about the golfers that had season passes and golf cart passes and things? How do they go about getting reimbursed their money?
Contact Stacy at our department.
Okay.
Stacy, that's why you get the big bucks.
So, any other questions? And Steve, I didn't
No,
want to
no.
cut you off, but I think, that's a discussion that still has to be had by the entire council, and I don't want to.
That's correct, and that's why I really don't have we don't have all the answers yet. And it's really the same thing here. We want to get all the citizens' input, keep talking, keep bringing it along. I totally agree that if there's a move or a direction to possibly go to a 9-hole golf course or some type of other executive level golf course, that we need to maintain that. And I think that's the key thing. Does that mean that ultimately it will be a golf course? Maybe not. Maybe in the end, there won't be enough there, or it'll be too cost prohibitive to develop it. But we need to at least save what we can for the next year or two until all the dust settles around it. And I think that's the key thing. And as a Parks Board, I think we need to think about that, to preserve that for the future.
Any other questions on this? If not, we will keep you updated.
All right, recommended approval of the CORP plan.
Everybody should have received your draft, but if I can ask you to keep this, because it may end up being the final, if there's no changes, I'd rather not pay for some extra ones of these, so I think it's a comprehensive document. I want to thank everybody on the board for, we've been working on this for almost a year. I think we started last February with Rettler. So I think it's been a good process to go through. I think if you're on the board now, it gives you a good idea, the planning that goes into this, and hopefully we're able to share with you a number of the projects that we've completed over the last 5 years. We do have one map that was included in here and we updated late last week that we'll make sure and get to you. Stacy, can you scroll down south? There was one neighborhood park that we had forgot to put in, and it's
Goes to page 40. I think
this
it's-
blue circle, which is,
Maybe not.
this is Witzel. Witzel is here, this is Ninth.
What page is that on, Ray?
42, I think.
I'm sorry.
No, that's not.
42, and I did either.
It's actually 42.
Yeah, 42. 42, 40,
42.
42.
Well, yeah, 42, whatever.
I don't have it up here.
We gotta get this key moved. This key is over the parks. So anyways, there's the one blue circle, and it's hard to see on here because we'll have to have Rettler move this the key, because it's covering up some of the parks that we have to show. But really looking at adding a neighborhood park, which would be north of 9th and south of Witzel. That area, eventually 9th Avenue, there's discussion of that potentially being 4 lanes going out through that area. So if we develop the neighborhood park south of 9th, it really impedes people from the north side crossing a 4-lane roadway, basically. So we're looking at including a neighborhood park up on that north of 9th, south of Witzel, basically. So we wanted to make sure that that was included in this document, and like I said, we'll get you a map that you can insert into yours and take this one out. But
How many acres?
we don't have acres on here. Typically for a neighborhood park, we're talking 3 to 10 acres. I mean, it all depends when it develops and how many dwelling units are basically put in there.
But it's land we own, lock, stock, and barrel already?
No, this would be future.
Okay, all right.
Acquisition when it's
Okay, but-
developed at that time.
Okay.
Then we'd work with the developer and come back to the board, like we do on other park properties. Do you want to take the parkland or have fees in lieu of?
Gotcha.
So it's just planning for the future. So that's the only change that I had. Otherwise, it's everything we brought to this board since February and March. Hopefully, if there's.
Ray, I just got a couple comments as a council member. First off, it's an excellent document. I think Rattler did an excellent job, and it's a really well put together plan. Just some things I think we need to be aware of as a Parks Board and as a council, and even as, we need to make sure that we share this plan with the planning division, because I think some of their ideas, as we've been moving around and things, then all of a sudden it kind of catches the planning commission by surprise at times, or vice versa, because like now Oshkosh Ave is probably going to be a business park, part of that change, so there'll be an upscale. I don't know if that affects anything we're going to be doing in that part, but I just think that for the board, we should concentrate on pages 80 through 107, which is, future park planning, short-term, mid-range, and long-term. Maybe set some placeholders in there for future. As I said, even with, the golf course or what's left of it, we don't know. But I think we need to share this plan with other organizations such as the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation, the Rotaries, the Lions, the Kiwanis, as they do fundraising and as they do things to, potentially help in Oshkosh, like the North Baseball did with the batting cages. So I think if we can get this in the hands of as many different organizations and groups, so that maybe they'll look at a specific fundraising for something that we can't maybe do as a Parks Board or as a city, and at the same time, I think any of these groups, we want to make sure that they get this city's gift policy, so that as they start to think about maybe helping our park and rec plans move forward, that they know what our policies are to accept donations and things, whether it's for the zoo or our tree planting program or any of the other programs that we have throughout the city, that those organizations are aware of what our policies are.
Just to your point, Steve, on the pages, I forget if it was 80 to 107 or whatever you said.
Yeah.
When we bring our CIP from staff, what we try to do is bring those high priority projects to you as our recommendations for the next,
Right.
Over the next 5 years, because that's what we work off of. So we'll constantly keep this in front of you every year when we bring those projects forward. We do share it with planning staff. I'll make sure that they share, especially the park acquisition stuff, with the plan commission, because I think you're right. Sometimes some of those lines get crossed at times. So I think we're staying on top of it fairly well, but we can make sure and share it. We do share it with the neighborhood groups as well, as they're looking to put in grants, proposals for certain projects. We ask that they look at our CORP and try to help us address some of the projects that we have in the CORP versus coming up with new ideas and new projects. So, but as far as civic groups and the foundation, we can make note of that as well. So, if there's no other questions, what we need is a recommendation for this to be considered and approved by the Plan Commission and Common Council. So it'll go to the Plan Commission next for their approval, and then Common Council ultimately.
I recommend.
I second.
Davis.
Aye.
Dirk.
Aye.
Wojciechowski.
Aye.
Herman.
Aye.
Kaufman.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Rule.
Aye.
Schussler.
Aye.
Bowler. Motion passed 8-0.
So again, please hold this. It's might be your final version. And we'll get you that updated map.
Ray, one thing I didn't see in here was everything combined? Did I miss it when I went through this? Like all of the total budget all combined on like 1 or 2 pages? It looks like we separated all of it out, and then maybe I just missed the whole combined budget for the next X amount of years. It's more of a question than anything, so.
Getting to it for you, Bill. If you look at page 116. Thanks, Tom. that adds up essentially the entire list of spreadsheets just prior to that, which is everything that is also on each of the individual parks.
I missed it, thanks.
That's okay. And just so everybody's aware, this does not include the master plan for South Park, Rainbow Park, Menominee Park, and the zoo. Those are not included in here, so when you see this $6 million plan, there's a couple million at each of those different sites as well that we try to weave in as part of these projects as well.
All right, next up, review and recommend approval for the Pollock Community Water Park Agreement between the city and the Oshkosh Area School Districts.
This is a every 3-year process. Since the new pool was constructed, we have a agreement with the Recreation Department School District to provide lifeguard services. There are no major changes basically to the agreement. The Recreation Department has already taken it to their school board, and they have recommended approval, so we want to bring it to you and ask for approval to go to the Common Council as well. Just a little background, if you're new, what we do is at the end of each summer, the Recreation Department will invoice us for all the lifeguard services, the supervisors that oversee the lifeguards, and we pay that out of the pool budget. And then what the school district rec department does is contributes $40,000 a year towards the operation of the pool, just because it's a recreational immunity that they're able to provide to the citizens along with the city. So that's what's in the agreement and consistent.
I recommend to approve.
Second.
Just before we vote, Ray, is there any changes at all? I mean, it's 3 years, so it's the first time I've really seen it. Any
Now, we
changes?
just really changed the dates in there.
Okay.
And then what they will, the Recreation Department will provide us with a salary schedule for their staff. We work with them closely on that, so really no major changes at all.
Okay.
I think it's been working out well, so.
Any other comments? For recommendation by rule, or motion by rule, second by Galeski, Davis,
Aye.
Dirth,
Aye.
Galeski,
Aye.
Herman,
Aye.
Kaufman,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Rule,
Aye.
Schussler,
Aye.
Wohler, motion passed 8-0.
All right, update on the capital improvement plan.
Right. In your packet, you should have received the approved capital improvement plan or projects for 2018. And first of all, I do want to mention again that the process we go through as a board, prioritizing for the Common Council, they very much appreciate. What we did back in June or July of this year, I provide that to all the council when we're talking budgets, and they will look at what this board has recommended along with staff. I did bring that document along tonight just to show you, but going through the projects, you can follow through. On the Parks Board's priority list that we provided to the council, Menominee Park Tennis Courts was number 1. That project is funded. The Riverwalk renovation by the Leach Amphitheater is at number 2 and is being funded. South Park play equipment and surfacing, we're removing the older equipment there. That has been funded. Fugelberg launch, the restroom update, that project is being funded. Fugelberg boat launch, lighting is funded. Fugelberg boat launch, potential add ramp and dock is being funded. Spanbauer field improvements was lowered down. It was 2 projects down, but that project is being funded as well. And then the final one that I did not put in here, was on a different page, is the Taking Root project is also being funded as part of some of the money for the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative. So I want you to know that the council is I think doing a good job supporting the parks. I didn't add it up, but I think Steve Herman, you might have mentioned it's about 1.3 million worth in projects for 2018. And this does not include equipment replacements such as mowers, trucks, and so forth. So I think the council understands the movement we're making and the progress. So I wanted to make sure and give you an update on what was approved. We'll be meeting within the next week or so to start scheduling all these projects and get them going for bids. And we'll have a busy 2018.
Ray, these are the projects for 2018?
2018,
Okay,
yes.
how much is coming out of the boat launch for some of these, like Fugelberg?
You know what, Bill? I don't think we're touching the boat launch fund, but I'll confirm that for you. Let me get back to you on that one.
Okay.
I didn't print that sheet off. We're relying on a number of donations, and if you take a look, under the project cost, you'll see that there's some state grants that will help fund some of these projects.
Correct.
Donations for some of these projects that we're hoping to solicit, and I will bring you that information for next month. I don't have it offhand.
Okay.
All right, old business. Bill has old business. Well, yes.
Hey, Gogolewski's way older than me.
All right.
I had that one coming from me.
Yes. All right. Staff reports and updates.
I will, the biggest thing I wanted to report, and you should have received some email information, is the ice rink that we were able to get installed behind the convention center at Riverside Park. It's really something that our department has been working with Carlene from the foundation on for a couple of years, trying to come up with a location to do something downtown. A number of sites were looked at and just didn't work out based on topography and slope and other things that came into play. But ultimately, Carlene was able to secure some generous donations from a number of individuals. And what we did was put a nice rink, it's called Nice Rink, down at Riverside Park. We got it in right before the cold snap, so it froze up very nicely. Our staff did the install. And just to give you an idea, we are working on a couple other amenities. First of all, it's our city parks department, Convention Visitors Bureau has been involved. The Convention Center and Best Western Hotel staff have been involved, as well as the foundation. Jenny's part of a committee that's looking to do some special events down there throughout the winter. We're going to have an official ribbon cutting on Friday, January 19th. Everybody's invited. There's going to be some free food and beverages. There will be a cash bar and some other food that you can purchase. And then on February 11th, there's going to be another special event down there, focused more on family and kids and possibly doing some things inside the convention center. So I think it's going to be a neat addition downtown. Again, just a big collaboration that I think the community will hopefully enjoy. That was my major point.
Chad, this question's for you. Can we bring some of those smaller bleachers down there? You know, for people to sit on, maybe? I don't know how difficult that is. Maybe it's too hard, but you know, just some of those 3-row bleachers.
Bleachers for the event would probably be worthwhile. I'm a little leery about some of our portable benches if they end up in the river or something of that nature, or out on the rink itself are
Okay.
being used. So that's a little bit of a concern, but maybe for the event, we may work on something if the request is there. We're still doing some planning on the events right now to know what we're gonna go towards.
Yeah, I just thought it'd be kind of neat if the parents had a place to sit down there and watch the kids. That's all. And maybe it's not practical.
Yeah, we do have 6 benches out there for changing skates and put some mats down so they don't mar up the concrete. Bought some cow mats and stuff to lay down to have a nice tracking pad up to the rink itself. So obviously the weather gets warmer, hopefully it gets used more.
Right.
When we were building it was a little different, of course, but
There are a couple of other amenities that we're adding with the help of the foundation. We are going to install some security cameras on the back side of the convention center, which will help deter any issues that we might foresee down there. We're also working with our facility maintenance staff to get some outdoor sound so that we can have music playing on some of the special events and maybe some of the weekends potentially. So there's going to be security camera as well as music. Anything else that I'm forgetting at this point?
lighting.
Oh, and lighting as well. They, I think they were installing some overhead lighting over the rink today possibly, and we had some of the trees lit up as well. So we're hoping to make it a little more festive. And again, this year, we were able to do it within about 3 weeks of getting notice to do it. So you'll continue to see it build, and some of those updates we'll definitely take a look at.
Nice job, you guys. It looks nice. I'm getting a lot of public input, and people really like it. The only thing they said is, can we make it bigger next year? So that's really the only downside I've heard, so.
Chad?
Just a few highlights for you guys. I know going over the CIP project, there's a lot of things happening in 2018, but I think also to express some of the carryover items that have continued from 2017. Teichmiller restroom is still in progress up there. Actually, it's coming along nicely, but we're way over the deadline. The anticipation, we've been having some challenges with the contractor on getting things completed, but everything will be functional definitely for the spring season coming forward. But the improvements up there are nice. I think everyone will like the amenities, much like our other restrooms here that we've taken place in the past. The 24th Street walkway out to the the path out the break wall. We do have a couple of areas to cove in for concrete there yet for some benches that are going on there. Actually, one has already been sponsored and some restoration work to there. The zoo maintenance building, which is there are some funds in the budget this year, not part of the CIP. This will come out of the revenues facility areas for the husbandry building improvements we're doing with some plumbing, some logistics in there. Also putting in a walk-in freezer and fridge unit, which will be a big thing. Then also the HVAC that is taking place through the building services account from there. Our park maintenance building still is just completing its HVAC renovation down there right now to get us through for the next few years till something's decided with our facility as we go forward. The Lakefly Cafe, we're going to be putting some serving windows in there. That is one HVAC improvement that's going to include heating and, we have heating in there now, but the future is going to have heating and air conditioning to it. But then our serving windows will be there so we can run and have a little bit of reprieve during the heat. If patrons in the zoo want to use that facility, they definitely can, but also keep us a cleaner environment, not having the open air concept for our concession stand for insects, birds, bats, whatever else might be down in the park from that end. So also, Bill, as you mentioned, you're wondering about some funding from the boat launch. We did have a couple electronic pay stations, or excuse me, kiosks and stuff that we had out of there coming in to help with some of the new improvements to the zoo, to those boat launches and retaining funds and things of that nature. So those are just a couple things there going forward, but I think the biggest challenges that we're working on right now is our seasonal staffing plan going forward to this coming year, how we can make things work and have a good recruitment of people going forward. Recently, we just hired our zoo education coordinator that is fully funded by the Oshkosh Zoological Society, which is very grateful for promoting all of our education programs for the zoo in the current year. So looking forward to Dawn starting and getting involved there. Our evaluation job description updates are always part of our human resources, and that we're trying to get caught up here in the winter so we aren't backlogged come into the summer season when more of those are due. Also for the public out on Miller's Bay, we did start removing snow out off the New York ice rink area for people that want to utilize that. No snow has made a big difference, but it is a little rough out there right now. If we do get these rains this week, maybe that'll help out a little bit there. Over at our senior center, the North Facility Building, we've been working with Gene Willerman, our manager, in regards to had some nice donations for developing a fitness room, which is a free weight room that we are developing 2 different areas over there to make that better and more useful for the users. So a lot still happening throughout the course of the winter months, but it's going to be a busy spring and summer fest sooner than later. So,
Chad, question, you talked about HVAC.
Mm-hmm.
What about the HVAC system that's in the golf course clubhouse? That's fairly new. What's happening with that?
We're able to remove that and repurpose it. It's actually already going to be used at some portions of the senior center. So
Oh, okay.
we're going to be taking out whatever can be utilized.
Okay.
How'd I answer? Good?
You did well. Didn't even move your mouth.
I'm trying to keep
Sounded
Chad
like
out-
great.
I'm trying to keep Chad out of the golf course.
But But anything else anyone has, or any questions or concerns? Okay.
Okay, I don't have a whole lot tonight, but forestry crew has been busy working on the 2018 street tree pruning schedule. And so they're well on their way of working through, several different zones. We're also updating our street tree inventory is something that we do annually. So right now we're entering in all the data from the various tree planting projects that we did in 2017. So that's all entered into a GIS format. So it's a pretty good means of record keeping for us. We were funded through the operational budget to upgrade our cemetery information management system, and so I'm working with IT and Raymaker and Associates to do the data migration for our current inventory into a program called eSIMS, which will allow us to actually access a lot of our data out in the field. So that's a much anticipated upgrade for us. With the staff, they're also working on upgrading some of their pesticide applicators licensing, which we are required to do through the state on a 5-year basis. So we have several people who are working on that currently as well. So essentially, we're able to get quite a bit of work done here. We've got to take down the Christmas decorations here this week yet, but the weather has been cooperative, so we haven't spent an undue amount of time on snow removal this year, so that's been helpful for some of our other work. That's all I have today.
Questions for Bill? All right, Jenny.
So right now, just trying to tie up things from last year, starting to work on reports now. So hopefully next month I'll have a report for you guys as far as number of events and attendees from all the events, and numbers of all the riders and visitors and things like that. So we had a really great year last year with sponsorships of all the different areas. So I'm excited to get that together, to get out to you guys. We had some really great events, great weather, great attendance, great sponsorships. So at the Leech for Tuesday night concert series, it was a really good year. We had some good people attending, hoping to really grow that event. So I just started working on bands for next year. So if anybody has any thoughts, you can throw them my way. We like to do a little survey out on Facebook, see what people are interested in, what bands they want to see. So we're planning on sticking with the food trucks on Tuesdays and getting some good bands in and food trucks and family entertainment and kind of building it like we did last year. We had some really good crowds, and it's starting to finally grow and get the word out there. Still, many people say they've never heard of it and they didn't know about it, so continuing to find ways to really promote that and kind of thinking outside of the box, more ways to get it out there to people who haven't heard about it. But so just trying to wrap some things up. Again, like Chad said, already working on staff, figuring out what positions we have open, what positions we need to fill. One of our managers at the pool is coming back this year, which is really exciting. So we'll have one new manager to hire over there, and one new manager to hire at the park. So each place we have one coming back, which is always helpful to have one that kind of knows the ropes from the year before. So that will be good. And just kind of working on getting all those reports starting. And by March, our first event, Breakfast with the Bunny and Exciting Day at the Zoo, is March 24th this year. So that's coming right around the corner already. So we'll use January and February here to try to catch up and from last year and get reports tied up. And by March, we'll be starting all the new stuff already. So anybody have any questions? Good.
Any other business? All right.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye. Oh, thank you. All in favor?
Aye. I need a cheat sheet.